One week until the fantasy playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully these rankings will help you get there. And starting off at the very top, we will have Allen, Jalen Hurts. The matchups aren't great, right? You're going up against KC, you're going up against Dallas. But both these quarterbacks are the only quarterbacks averaging more than 23 points per game right now. And the main reason is it's because it doesn't really matter if it's a tough matchup for them. They're going out there. They have a ton of rushing upside. So you could still see a bad game from Josh Allen. You can still see a game where Allen has multiple turnovers, blah, 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 and people are roasting him on Twitter. It doesn't matter, okay? This guy's going to put up a ridiculous amount of fantasy points. These should be high-scoring contests overall. So they're still going to be our top-tier quarterbacks. Dak Prescott will be our next guy in here at 3. If you are looking at Dak Prescott, right now he's averaging about 21 points per game, and he has an implied team total of almost 28 points against the Philadelphia Eagles. Vegas is telling us that we should expect the Dallas Cowboys to be better than the Philadelphia Eagles this next week. And hell, you know what I say? We have to listen to what Vegas says. Patrick Mahomes will be our next guy in here at 4. Mahomes been disappointing this season, only averaging 18.5 points per game. But still, he's Patrick Mahomes, so I don't want to overreact. You're going up against Buffalo. You have an implied team total of 25.5 points, so should be able to move the ball down the field, should be able to put points up on the board. And I know we've had a lot of people in the comment section as of late going, oh, I'm starting Jordan Love over Mahomes. I would beg you not to overthink it. And while, yes, he has been disappointing, I still think you need to go through and start Patrick Mahomes if you have him. Lamar Jackson will be our next quarterback coming in at 5. Lamar has an implied team total of 24 points going up against the Rams. Really hope we get a big Lamar week. I have a massive league on the line that I need some Lamar points in. But nonetheless, he has rushing upside. The only issue is we are seeing a lot of these points get monopolized to the running back position here in Baltimore with these guys going out there and stealing the touchdowns at the goal line, such as Gus Edwards. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Brock Purdy, averaging 19 points per game. And you know what? Honestly, Purdy should not be in the tier below. He has a good matchup going up against Seattle, and he has the second highest implied team total in the NFL this week at 28.5 points. He's averaging 19 points per game. He's been phenomenal. It doesn't matter if you want to make an argument it's because Purdy's a great player or it's because Purdy's in a great situation. The fact of the matter is he's putting up a ton of fantasy points, which is the only thing I care about. Now, CJ Stroud will be our next quarterback. 100% CJ Stroud will be higher than this in our rest of season rankings. If you head over to flockfantasy.com, you can always view the community rankings for free over there. You will see that CJ Stroud is a top 5 quarterback in the flockfantasy.com community rankings. The issue is this week in particular, you have a brutal matchup going up against the Jets where you have an implied team total of only 19.5 points. So I can already see a lot of people panicking about CJ Stroud going into next week saying that, oh my gosh, no Tank Dell, this guy's now going to be a bum. No, he's going to be fine. It's just a really tough matchup. Now, Justin Herbert will be our next guy at 8 with Herbert. He's still averaging about 19.5 points per game. You can make an argument that he needs to be in the tier above this. You have an implied team total of about 23.5 points. And it's a fine matchup going up against Denver. So I completely understand if you want to go out there and if you want to make an argument for Herbert. In reality, all these quarterbacks inside the top 9 are very safe options. Like our next guy with Tua at 9 has the highest implied team total of any team in the NFL this week at 30.25 points. This offense is obviously elite. My only hesitation is going to be that we do have a considerable, and I mean a considerable amount of production going to the running backs in this backfield. Now, what will be interesting to note is if you head over to the Underdog Pick'ems and you look at what you have right now for the projections versus Tua and these quarterbacks a tier above him, Underdog actually has Tua at the very top of passing yards projections this week. The thing with Tua, on the other hand, is you're not necessarily going to have a ton of rushing production. So even if they have Tua projected out for more passing volume than Mahomes, still not necessarily a spot where we can go out there and say we need to start him over Mahomes, right? And if you think that's crazy, if you think that there's no way Tua should project out to be higher than Mahomes, you can find that link to Underdog Fantasy in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% a positive match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And with promo code FLOCK, you are also going to be getting a Jaylen Warren special pick'em more than less than half a total yard on Underdog Fantasy. I actually do like pairing that Jaylen Warren pick him up with another pick him for this Thursday night game. While I expect Ezekiel Elliott to have every single touch in this backfield, ultimately they have an implied team total of 12 points. The Patriots are going to be horrendous. So I'm going to go Jaylen Warren for more than half a total yard and Ezekiel Elliott for fewer than 80.5 total yards. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Justin Fields at 10. If you are looking at Fields, this is a quarterback that has a ton of rushing upside. Obviously, we're going to be excited about that. Passing volume won't really be there, but honestly, should be a higher scoring game going up against Detroit. At least that's what Vegas is telling us currently. Jordan Love will be our next quarterback. While Love has been great, Vegas is telling us he's going to fall back down to earth just a bit. You have an applied team total of only about 21 points. And going up against the Giants, my main concern is this isn't really going to be a team getting into a shootout. This isn't a team that has to throw the ball in the second half. So I do think you can see the Packers playing with a slower pace and being less aggressive overall in the second half in this matchup. Joshua Dobbs will be our next guy at 12. Dobbs will get Jefferson back in. Obviously, the week before the bye, Joshua Dobbs was a train wreck. It was horrendous. But you add Jefferson back into this offense. You have a good matchup going up against the Raiders. Actually pretty fine with this spot. You have an applied team total of almost 22 points right now for Minnesota. And keep in mind, Joshua Dobbs does have a lot of rushing upside as well. Jared Goff will be our last quarterback in this year going up against Chicago. You only have an applied team total of about 23 points, which is a lot lower than what we're used to with the Detroit Lions. But obviously in a division game, you're going to see these games be a little bit less predictable than just a normal one. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Wilson, Minshew, Winston. Jameis Winston would be the interesting guy to talk about here. And if you are looking at Jameis, this is a quarterback that I would want to be really excited about. I mean, I have fun watching, and I have fun rooting for Jameis Winston, to be completely honest. I don't think he's a great quarterback. Obviously, he's going to turn the ball over. Going up against Carolina, though, I don't necessarily think that we are going to get vintage Jameis, in that we shouldn't expect him to be having to throw the ball in the second half and having to play catch up. You do have the New Orleans Saints as pretty large favorites in this game. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Baker going up against Atlanta, averaging about 15 points per game. We're going to go Stafford. I know this is pretty low on Stafford, pretty low on Geno, but they have horrendous matchups going up against Baltimore and San Fran. And then Will Levis down here at 20 as well. Will Levis has an applied team total of about 17 points here. Not too super excited about it. Now, going over to our next set of rankings, we will be looking at tight ends. Tier 1, Travis Kelce, not too much to discuss. I understand that Kelce hasn't been vintage Travis Kelce, but he still does project out to be the tight end 1 every single week. And while Kelce has fallen back down to earth this season, he's still averaging about 16.5 points per game, which isn't what we saw from Kelce last year or the year before, but it's still much better than anybody else at the position. Now, dropping down to our second tier, we are going to mix things up here a bit. We're going to go Sam Laporta. Yeah, I'm sure you're used to seeing TJ Hawkinson at 2 over and over and over again. The issue in putting TJ Hawkinson there is it's going to be a very tough spot with Jefferson coming back into this offense and the passing volume not being sky high like it would be with Kirk Cousins. So we will have Hawkinson at 3. I'm excited to see Hawkinson with Jefferson in here, but I do want to be a little bit hesitant. Now, Dalton Kincaid will be our next guy in here at 4 with Kincaid going up against KC. Should have a ton of passing volume. I mean, I know a lot of people are asking, what happens if Dawson Knox comes back later in the... I don't care one way or another. Dalton Kincaid's still going to crush it. Dropping down to a player in the tier of his own, you will have George Kittle. With Kittle, you have a crazy ceiling from week-to-week perspective, but when you also have Deebo Samuel, when you also have Brandon Ayuk in this offense, we can say at the same time, while George Kittle does have a crazy high ceiling, he does have a pretty low floor as well. The offense should be great every single week. You have an applied team total of 28.5 points here, but I think we should be a little bit realistic. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Evan Ingram at 6. With Evan Ingram, I kind of want to reiterate that we're not super excited about this spot. You have no Trevor Lawrence. It's a horrible matchup against Cleveland. It really just comes down to who else are you going with? He's at least had consistent target volume. You have no Christian Kirk as well. So I feel like this is more so a two-tier drop going down from 5 to 6. The top 5 tight ends, are far ahead of everybody else this week. In this tier, we'll throw Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz did practice on Wednesday, so I'm going to operate under the assumption that Dalton Schultz will be playing this week. Now, of course, we don't know for sure. You will need to go through and continue to monitor and make sure that Schultz is playing. But if he's playing, you should have a considerable amount of targets with no Tank Dell here in this offense, and it should be a pretty good team. Now, at 8, we are going to go Taysom Hill. With Taysom, if we have Jameis in here, and we obviously have banged up receivers with no Michael Thomas and maybe no Shaheed, you're in a spot where they're just going to have to lean on Taysom Hill a little bit more than what you're used to. So I would be fine if you wanted to go out there and start Taysom Hill this week. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we're going to go Jake Ferguson at 9, sending up a prayer that, okay, he's in a very good offense. Maybe he scores a touchdown, which should be a high-scoring game against Philly. Obviously, very volatile option this season. He is averaging about 10.5 points per game, which is slightly less than Cole Kmet. And to be honest with you, I kind of want to have Cole Kmet at 9, right? I feel like Kmet, at least in those games where you've had Justin Fields, has been a little bit more of that consistent force. So we will move Kmet up to 9, Ferguson down to 10. And afterwards with David Njoku, it's an interesting spot in that we don't know if Amari Cooper is going to be good to go or not. At the same time, you have very bad quarterback play here with Joe Flacco. David Njoku is commanding volume consistently, so you could make an argument to move David Njoku higher than this. I am just not super excited to. And then Dallas Goedert here. Dallas Goedert saying that he's most likely going to play this week, and thank God, I needed Dallas Goedert so bad for some best ball teams right now. So Goddard, thank you for coming back. I really hope Goddard is better than the tight end 12 this week. But the reality of the situation is we don't know what the use is going to look like 1 week in. It's a very tough matchup going up against the Dallas Cowboys as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, we'll go Kyle Pitts, throw him in here at 13 just because what else are we supposed to do? Who knows? He had a decent week last week. Jonnu Smith is getting used less and less here in Atlanta, and it's a better matchup this week going up against Tampa. Pat Freiermuth will be our next guy in here at 14 with Freiermuth. He had a little bit of a ceiling. I don't know. He showed something. It's a really bad matchup going up against the Patriots right now. If you look at his underdog pick'em, they only have Pat Freiermuth at 27.5 receiving yards, though. So instead of starting him, you should probably just go take the more than 27.5 receiving yards on underdog if you believe in him. Now, Gerald Everett will be our next guy in here at 15. With Everett, very difficult to be super excited. He's been wildly inconsistent. It is a good offense. You have a bunch of injuries in this offense as well. Cade Otton will be our next guy at 16. With Cade Otton, he's been in all of these tight ends. Will go Likely, Higbee, Michael Mayer. You're all sending up a prayer that you get a touchdown. The tight ends from 13 to 19, none of them can be trusted. They are random dart throws. They all project to have anywhere from like 27.5 to 33.5 receiving yards on Underdog Fantasy this week. Very difficult to rely on any of these guys. Really, I just hope that you have a top 5 tight end so you don't even have to watch as far into the video. But I think that should be it for this. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. Really hope you got something from it. Of course, if you have not done so already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you wanted to go out there and tail us with Ezekiel Elliott for fewer than 80.5 total yards, pair that up with Jalen Warren, more than half a total yard. You can find that on Underdog Fantasy. Promo code FLOCKS going to give you a 100% deposit match up to $100 plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. And that Jalen Warren special pick of more than less than half a total yard. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great day and hope you get to see you out with a live stream later tonight.